Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we are unpacking an absolute masterclass in minimalist horror. We're going to look at how pure, visceral terror can be constructed not with massive Hollywood budgets or drawn-out narratives, but with the absolute bare minimum of text and the cleverest use of digital context. And the craziest part? We are deriving this entire analysis from a single, incredibly brief piece of internet media. So let's break down the anatomy of a microscare.
All right, let's jump right into part one, the 5-word hook and deconstructing the dialogue.
To really understand how this scare is built, we've got to start at the absolute foundation. That means isolating the dialogue completely from its surrounding context, stripping away everything else, and just looking at the raw script. And it's 5 words. Yeah, just 5 words. Take a second to let that sink in. I mean, think about how little information that actually is. We aren't analyzing some massive dramatic monologue here. We aren't picking apart a complex back-and-forth conversation. The entire spoken component of this media is literally just a handful of words.
And here they are. I can see you, Mom. Now just read that quote to yourself for a second. Let's isolate it. If you heard a little kid call that out from across a playground, what's the vibe? It's warm, right? It's completely innocent. It's a harmless, super affectionate, childlike phrase. It implies connection, safety, and maybe a simple game of hide and seek. There's absolutely zero inherent fear in this phrase on its own. It is the literal picture of domestic innocence.
But that brings us to part 2, priming the fear and the undeniable power of context.
Because this is where the surrounding metadata steps in and completely shatters that initial innocence we just talked about. Consider these specific details pulled straight from the creator's YouTube context. First up, the channel name, Star Freeze. It kind of sets this abrupt, cold mood right out of the gate. But the second point, that's what really does the heavy lifting. The format is explicitly labeled Best Scary Scenes Edit, complete with a screaming, fearful emoji. So, before a single frame even plays or a single word is spoken, you have been primed. The creator is unambiguously setting up a cognitive frame of fear. It's a psychological priming effect in full action, and it's incredibly effective.
Moving on to part 3, the weeping woman and decoding the hashtags. Okay, so we know we're in for a scary scene, but to understand the exact flavor of this terror, we need to look at the hashtags. The source material basically defines itself right here in the metadata. The title includes the hashtag Llorona. Now, for anyone who might not be familiar with what that means, the creator immediately follows it up with the translation and definition through another hashtag, weeping woman. And just to make absolutely sure there's zero confusion about the tone of this figure, it is instantly categorized alongside the tag, scary. So we aren't just dealing with generic, run-of-the-mill horror here. We are dealing with the specific, tragic, and honestly terrifying folklore of a weeping woman.
Which leads us to part 4, deconstructing the scare and the collision of text and context.
This is the absolute crux of the whole thing. What happens when we smash that innocent transcript directly into the terrifying metadata? On one hand, we have our innocent ingredient, I can see you, Mom. On the other hand, the ultimate digital promise of terror, the scary scenes edit, and the weeping woman. This collision perfectly illustrates how context completely mutates tone. When you drop a child's comforting phrase into the explicitly scary framework of a weeping woman edit, it doesn't just lose its innocence, it weaponizes it. That comfort turns into a moment of pure dread precisely because it shouldn't belong there. This is cognitive dissonance at its absolute peak.
Let's walk through the actual psychological mechanics of experiencing this specific piece of media, step by step. Step 1, the viewer encounters the digital footprint first. You read the title, you see that screaming emoji, you process the tags for a scary weeping woman. Boom. Fear is established as your baseline expectation. Then, step 2 happens. You hear the audio. You hear a child say, I can see you, Mom. But because your brain is already swimming in that fear, primed by the metadata, the subversion of expectations just kicks right in. The innocence is instantly twisted into horror. Is the weeping woman the mom? Is the child talking to a monster? This stark contrast creates an immediate, visceral spike in tension that a complex Hollywood script might take 20 minutes to build.
And that brings us to the final, brilliant layer of this 5-word masterpiece. We started out with what seemed like a simple, fun game of hide and seek, but when placed under the dark shadow of the weeping woman and those scary tags, the entire dynamic completely shifts. It leaves us with this lingering, deeply unsettling question to end our explainer today. When the weeping woman is watching, who is really seeing who? It's just a perfect example of how internet media can generate profound, lasting dread through incredibly simple juxtaposition. Thank you so much for exploring this analysis with us. It really just goes to show you that sometimes the absolute most terrifying things are the ones left completely unsaid.